Excellent. Thanks. Oh, hold on. Got a bit of feedback there. 2 seconds. I was so nervous about the chat that I've got it live on my phone as well to be able to see it, but it is working. Thank you, Ashley, for saying the chat's working as well. Like every session that we've had before, if you haven't joined a Midday Musings before, there's a poll at the bottom of the screen. You can ask a question, but also speak in the chat, and we'll pick anything up as we go. Next week we have got Adam Gordon around email automation, and Sarah Wall from Darwin talking about international marketing. You can sign up via the button below. But today it's all about content. Kris conservatively estimated yesterday on the WhatsApp group that he reckons 150,000 words minimum. Yeah, is that what you reckon?
Something like that. Yeah. Going off the article we wrote when it was 50,000, which is probably about 18 months, 2 years ago. It can't be far off.
Yeah. So today is all about content, not just marketing content, but using content to position your consultants and your business as a whole as industry experts. I think most recruitment companies, if you go on any recruitment company's websites, they say, we're specialists in this, we're specialists in that, and they don't really back it up by a huge amount. So I'm delighted to have Kris Holland here from Charlton Morris and Advo to join me today. So welcome, Kris.
Hiya, thanks, man.
Just for those who don't know you, just a quick intro to your background and what you're up to now and things.
Yeah, so I'm Kris, been with Charlton Morris since 2014. Did 2 years working as a consultant, and then moved into the marketing function to head that up. Had a massive focus on content over that time, and in terms of initially did the same content as a lot of other recruiters and recruitment companies have done. Moved into doing much more specialist stuff, and then moved into more collaborative stuff, more video, and then we're here today, which is where we've got 4 websites, 3 of which are totally content focused, and try and sort of, that's a big part of our brand and what we do, and like you said, proving that we're specialists in the markets that we serve.
Yeah. And you were a consultant previously at Charlton Morris, weren't you? Like you said, and what was it that when you moved into marketing, think, right, content is what we're going to do? Was it you pushing it? Was it Andy, the CEO of Charlton Morris, saying this is the approach we need to take? Was it collaborative? What was like, look, this is what we need to focus on?
Yeah, a little bit of both. When I was a consultant, I was trying to do bits just because I sort of noticed that other consultants were doing it from other companies, and you sort of, I realized as I was doing that, I was copying what they were doing and copying just the sort of, some of the dross that you see that's like, interview tips, what to wear for an interview and all that, and just the standard stuff, how to prepare your CV. And like, I was a 24, 25-year-old recruitment consultant, essentially telling VP of sales how to write a CV, which, like, with the greatest of respects to 25-year-old me, like, they know much more about that than I do. And I see more CVs, yeah, but they're all prepared for an interview. They've been to more interviews than I've ever had. And so we saw that, and then it started working a little bit, and then I suppose it was something that I really pushed to do more and more of, and then as I say, trying to actually, having been a consultant, and people always ask you, because our thing is that we're specialists, we work in really niche markets. You're always talking about how you're a specialist, and how do you prove that? And usually the way that you prove that is, look at these placements I've made. Maybe you say, here's a reference of someone that I've placed with. But really that is definitely what everybody else is going to be doing. So we just thought, like, actually, look, we'll put ourselves out there and actually show off that we're in touch with really interesting, great people in our markets, and we know what we're on about.
Yeah, and I think, I joked about it when I was promoting the show this morning on LinkedIn around the other way people try and show their specialists is by look at the jobs that we're working on. But then more often than not, when you go through a recruitment agency's job board on their own site, they're all very similar. there's nothing unique about them. They're not adding a huge amount of value. They're telling these specialists who you're meant to be working with what they need to be doing for a job that they've been doing all of their career as well. They know what they need to be doing in certain verticals. So it's not adding value or insight in any way in that respect, is it?
No, it's not. And I think that, when and by if your form of advertising your specialism is the jobs that are on your website, then I mean, realistically, the level that we're at, as a business, mid to senior level stuff up to exec search. So you're looking at roles starting at 60, 70k usually and up all over the world. If I'm a consultant and my specialism is neuromodulation and I'm working on these roles, then you can't, even as a client, you wouldn't expect me to be working on more than 2-3 roles at a time, 4 roles maybe, because it's that specialist, that niche that, there's a lot to do for it for these processes. So, but if a client goes on your website and says, hang on, you're only working on 2 neuromodulation roles and you say you're a neuromodulation specialist, then it can create more hassle than it's worth. It can create more headaches, in my opinion. If you still need your jobs. For us, we stick them all on LinkedIn. But if your volume, or you've got loads and loads of stuff that you just need, all hands to the deck, just get as many people in as possible, then definitely have them there. But for me, it's not.
I do think that's an important point. Your approach isn't going to work for everyone in every sector. There'll be people watching this, listening to this, who work high volume roles where it is about getting jobs. Maybe some people in the blue collar sector, for example. But that doesn't mean that it's one or the other, is it? You can still position yourselves in a specialist through good, insightful content.
100%, like definitely, and I think that we came to the decision to not advertise jobs, and because in our opinion it was doing us more harm than good, for those conversations that we're having with clients. And even today, like, I know that I've had quite a few conversations with people since who still have been like, it's mad that you've got jobs on your website, you're a recruitment company, but we have got them somewhere. But I mean, for me, like in those blue collar sectors and places like that, like I think that really specialist or really high quality content, there's so little of it out there that you could probably have more impact with really high quality content in those sectors than in the stuff that we're doing, where you are starting to see more of it.
Yeah. So in terms of content, let's get a little bit kind of practical now. I'm sure people are creating content, and maybe it's a little bit reactive, or it's being led by the marketing team. This is what we think we should write, etc., etc. If someone wants to start doing this, at least, or start taking the steps that you did, and I don't mean potentially taking all jobs off, although looking at the poll right now, 75% of people say they don't think they'd lose revenue if they did take jobs off of their site, which is interesting. But what would be the kind of the step? What were the steps that you took when you started introducing this content strategy? And it was a strategy. I was fortunate enough to work with you 18 months or so ago, discussing this, and it was a strategy. But what were the steps that happened internally to get this embedded within Charlton Morris?
So I think the first thing that we did, or the most important thing that I did, having again been a consultant and done that, was realize that our role was to be. We realized that as a consultant, as a recruiter, you are in the middle of a market. You've got an objective view of that market, which other people haven't got because they're attached to companies. Mm-hmm. Even people who've been in it 20 years will work for company A. So they can't really write something praising company B, C, D, E, F, G, because they're going to get in trouble for it. So we realized that as a consultant in the middle of their market, they were the source of the content rather than it coming from marketing, and they know the market's better than anyone else. So what we did, the first step we did, was facilitate it being as easy as possible for those consultants to talk to us about the things going on in their markets. And that was literally, at first, it was me going around to people in the office and saying like, right, who wants to write something, who wants to do something, you know, put your hand up and we'll have a chat. And then, you know, as always happens, you find your sort of champions of it. You have conversations with them and say, right, well, you know, what's happening in your market then? What's everybody talking about? You know, and it's this new technology, it's this new trend, it's this new regulation. We go, all right, sweet. So if you want to, you know, get a few articles, get them all cobbled together, and basically put the onus on the consultant, because our thing with content is always that I see it as a sales tool that's facilitated by marketing as opposed to something that's marketing. So for us with the consultants, you know, the ideas come from the consultants and they are then comes to marketing, where we collaborate with them to create something that is, you know, obviously is quality and meets all the expectations of the brand. And then together we work with the consultants to sort of push it out. Mm-hmm. So the bulk of the actual making of it or putting it together will happen from marketing. We'll do it. But then we say to the consultant, as soon as they get that piece back or that piece is ready to go, that's when your work starts.
Yeah.
And then from there, it was all about creating that culture of celebrating those little wins, celebrating when something came of content, celebrate. And then that's led to today, which is like a much more sophisticated, further down the line version. It's all in CRM and that. But that was it. You know, the first practical step was just talking to consultants and just saying what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, what are people talking about? And then putting a process in place whereby they can come and have an open conversation with marketing about putting something together.
And was there, did you already have kind of buy-in from a leadership level? Was it a case of, look, I think we need to be doing this for these reasons, I need you to back me? Or was it you just took it upon yourself to run with it?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of both. We were lucky, I think, in the sense that I suppose initially it was, you know, I moved into this marketing role and we didn't have any marketing. Obviously we had marketing in the sense that you've got all the stuff you need to be a business, but
you got your PowerPoints, yeah?
Yeah, brochures, etc. And the LinkedIn was being managed by someone, and you know, it's fine. But when we were lucky in the sense that, or good, but I'll say lucky, in the sense that as soon as we started doing this, we hammered. We just had instant success with it. So, you know, I think the first one that we did, or one of the first ones we did, was like some really, really niche life science molecular diagnostics stuff, where we spoke about the comings and goings in the market, and it just took off, you know, on LinkedIn, which like they just asked there in the chat. I saw like this was all on LinkedIn for us at the time, and LinkedIn's always been our primary channel. We've dabbled and tried other things, but for us as a business, like that has been the thing that's worked better than us. So, you know, with the resources you've got in a recruitment marketing function, I just think, you know, just go on what works. Keep trying little bits and bobs every now and again, but there's no point, or there was no point in us messing about with Facebook, and we use Instagram for our employer brand, and we just hammered LinkedIn with it.
Yeah, and it works, isn't it? You know, you're a business of what 60 odd people, and you're about to hit the best part of 200,000 followers on LinkedIn, aren't you? And a lot of that is, well, obviously your jobs are on there. Look, that does play a role. Let's be honest there. But the content has played a huge role in that exposure on there, hasn't it? Yeah,
massively. And I think that the followers is something that people talk about us, and it is really good and it's great, and we'll, you know, be at that 200k mark soon. But that it's never really been something that we've really, really focused on. You know, we went through a phase like 2 or 3 years ago of saying like, oh, can everyone ask their networks to like and share this page and everything? But what we see it as is that our consultants are all specialists in their markets and have their own personal brands. And by them all having really, really strong personal brands and trying to be thought leaders in the markets that they do, then there's a drip down effect from people wanting to know what they're talking about to what Charlton Morris is talking about. So in my opinion, yeah, I mean, the jobs have a massive part to play. There's no denying that. Like, if you ramp up your jobs on LinkedIn, if you double your jobs on LinkedIn, you're going to get a lot of followers.
Yeah.
But it consistently, even whether our jobs might fluctuate as to what we've got on there, but it continues at pretty much the same rate. And I think it's because we've got all of these ambassadors who are, you know, advocates for the brand without actually just talking about how brilliant Charlton Morris is, because we try and stop that as much as possible.
Yeah.
Just by doing good stuff.
Yeah, and I think pick up you mentioned what worked for you there on Billy's question. You were just pushing it out on LinkedIn, and I think when you are limited in resource or your small marketing function, like you were when we started speaking and working together, it was you. Is you now the one channel, and once you now that one channel, you can start expanding a bit more, because we were having discussions about, well, we've got all this great content, how do we start pushing out direct via email marketing and etc. And that's what evolved ultimately into your content websites. Your websites are effectively media sites for the sectors, aren't they? Across all of the channels, and go and check Charlton Morris's various websites out. Anyone who's watching or listening, it's well worth it. It's kind of like I always say it's like a mashable for the different sectors that you operate in. But I think Billy, it's like anything, isn't it? You have to go fishing where the fish are, and if most of your audience and your target audiences are on LinkedIn with your content, push it there. Don't push everything everywhere. I've definitely been guilty of that, especially with all the auto schedulers and stuff that you can do now. You push it across Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all in one click, and it just doesn't work. So I think the content's got to be right for the channel, and you're much better off getting 90% success on a single channel than 40-50% success over six or seven different ones. So I want to go really practical now, kind of step by step. You mentioned going talking to people, but that evolved, didn't it? When it came down to then get writing the content, it was pretty process driven. You had templates, for example.
So we have templates in the sense that we
fill this out to get a bit of content written.
We put in forms, which we still use today. They've evolved a little bit, but we put together forms to give to the consultants.
And what does that look like? What do you ask for?
So now I suppose what it looks like today is, the first section of it is, the first section before you even get onto the content is, what do you want to achieve? What do you want this piece of content to achieve for you? What do you want to get out of it? Is it, I want to be seen as more of a thought leader in my market? We try and avoid vague, just stuff.
More candidates?
Yeah. So it'd be, it might be like, more clients wouldn't be acceptable. It'd be like, right, which clients do you want to get into? Who do you want to start talking to as a result of this? Mm-hmm. What do you want to come from? Or I want to pick up a couple of vacancies in this market, or I want to break into this market, or I want to get speaking to people from this territory or this region. We go, okay, cool. So then that's your objective, that's your aim. And then it'd be a bit of a synopsis, bit of an overview underneath that. What do you want your article to be about? Maybe 3 or 4 or 5 different articles on similar topics, or at least for a bit of colour, a bit of background for us. And then just sort of a bit of further reading. And then from there, that comes into us. And what I would say as well, that's been really helpful for us, that we had to learn, both myself first and then my team and I had to learn to do, was to send these back if they weren't up to scratch.
It's asking that why question, isn't it? And I think for a marketer, that is so important. If you're not happy with the result, or you don't think you can achieve what you believe you need to, then ask why. Because if you ask why once, twice, 3 times, you'll find out the actual reason why you're doing something.
And I think as soon as you start pushing something back as well, it creates value. It adds value to it, a bit of exclusivity to it. And it means that you've got people, you want people, and we're lucky enough that we do have this now, where you want people fighting for marketing's time. Like, marketing shouldn't be something that is just at the beck and call of someone to click the fingers and you're
sitting in the corner waiting for someone to come to you to ask you to.
It should be, look, I've got 25 forms in here from all these different things, and I can only do so many. I can only do so many at a time. So we're going to do this, and we're going to prioritize this because of this. And, maybe if you want, if something's very time sensitive, obviously you do it. And there are things that you've got to do immediately, but you create that value, I think.
Yeah. And I think you've mentioned it before. You're not experts in the latest I don't know. Name a medical device instrument that no one would have heard of.
Well, I mean, one that's very in vogue, like ventilators.
Okay, yeah. So you're not an expert. Take that as an example. So you're not an expert in the latest developments in R&D in ventilators, but it's topical. Obviously, at the moment, we recruit in that area. Someone wants to write an article. How do you then go about to do the research to be able to speak with a certain level of credibility without someone going, "You're a recruiter, you don't know anything about this"?
So I think there's firstly, I would say the easiest thing to do is say I'm a recruiter. I'm a recruiter in this. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an expert in R&D. I'm not going to tell you how to make a ventilator or build a ventilator or do something mad with it. And just be honest about that and get that out in the open. We always say that you've always got to add value. You've always got to speak from a point of authority. And if anyone's not speaking from a point of authority or overstepping the mark, or basically we think that a PhD on LinkedIn can absolutely savage them, then we're not going to put it out because it's not worth it. We've had stuff like that happen back in the day, and we've been quite good at that. I think secondly, as a recruiter, if you're a good recruiter in these markets and you are a specialist, then you've got access to loads of really good people who are experts in it. Yeah. So if you doubt, get them involved. People love to talk about themselves. And there's an example that I've seen, I can't remember who even showed me or told me about it or something, that I think is a really good thing in marketing. And it's saying that people are inherently selfish. And you can get people to talk about themselves, they're much happy to do that. And if people have a picture with their firstborn, their first ever picture with the newborn baby in the hands, who's the first person to look at? And it's not the baby, because I want to see how they look in the dude. It's just a demonstration of because people love talking about themselves.
Well, do you know what? Well, not to downplay you or things like that, but I think about this webinar series. I approached people who I thought were good in certain areas and expertise, and not a single person said no. Everyone who I've got over these next few episodes, everyone has come into it. One, because I know that they're experts and I've approached them, but two, like you say, people are willing to give back, and there is an element, let's be honest, of oh, look, that's nice. That was nice that I got asked here. I want to talk about it.
100%. And I think that I just saw the question there from Josie in the chat about, and I think it links really well into answering that question, because for a sales team that might not understand the value of marketing, how do you get their buy-in so effective collaboration can begin? It's that what I'm giving you here, or what we're talking about here, is a way to potentially get clients on the phone, get companies on the phone that you've never spoken to before, who don't want to be e-shotted, who don't want to be sent brochures, who don't want this because they just get it all day, every day. You approach them and say, look, don't worry, I'm a recruiter, but look, I'm not going to try and flog you a candidate right now. This isn't a sales thing. I specialize in this market. I'm writing this article about this one very, very specific thing. Have you got 20 minutes?
Yeah.
It's the recruiter, the consultant that approaches them. And then when you come to the call, it may be just them doing it. It may be you as marketing jump on it as well to try and, steer the conversation in a direction. And all of a sudden, a recruiter could have had an hour-long conversation with a client they've never spoken to before in a senior level position. And all they're doing is having, valuable conversations. Yeah. And then when you've written the article about them, obviously you know the company inside out because you've written this brilliant article about them. Why wouldn't they come back to you? Further down the line. It doesn't need to be this sell. And it takes, the difficulty is getting recruiters to hold back in that initial conversation.
And not sell, not go for the job straight away.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's something that's probably the most difficult part of this, and trying to say, look, your more salesy chat, won't be pitch. It'll be more of a mature conversation, but it might be in your third conversation. It might be that you have your chat for the article, you follow up when the article goes live, you follow up a couple of weeks later to talk about the feedback, and that's when you introduce it. But by that time, it's a much easier conversation to have. And then you've just got to celebrate those wins. Every time you get something successful, you've got to shout about it.
Yeah, and I think this probably ties back. And Josie, I'm not sure if you saw the first session with Richard Turrell about creating those champions. Is that So in my view, I would not try and do something certainly to the level that Kris is doing, or just general content, and try and roll it out across your whole business, whatever size you are. Is identify those champions, those people who are up for it straight away, and get the proof of concept, get the proof of the wins at a very small level. A bit like we were speaking about the distribution channels, to be honest. Identify one or two people that you can run with it, not just from a content point of view, but to make sure you've got your own processes, your thought process going ahead as well. And obviously the stuff you write is quite technical, and, it'll be technical for a lot of people because, most marketers aren't working in that space. Do you use other external kind of resources as well, other than your candidates and clients, just general, not quite Wikipedia, but no. Just
we use, we've set up things like Feedly and everything like that, and we try and take inspiration from the content, and we always try and curate more than we create. It just makes sense to do that. But no, we don't. We've never paid for any external help with content. Put it that way. We use the research and the internet and things to find things out. But we just make sure that, like say, because I think for me, if you always make sure that you're checking yourself, and you speak from that point of authority and add that value, then you can't really go too far wrong with it. And I think another thing, just to go back on what you mentioned there about celebrating the wins and celebrating the little victories with stuff, like define what that is beforehand, because it might be that if you haven't got a blog section on your website or anything, you want to use LinkedIn and their articles feature and push that out for your consultants. It might be that they put an article out and it doesn't, it gets, 10, 15 likes and not many views because LinkedIn's mad like that, and it can happen. But it's quality. That isn't a failure for your consultant, because like I said before, that's when your consultant's work starts. They use that in their business development. They use that as conversation starters. They use that to open doors for them much more effectively than probably what they're doing.
Than a spec CV.
Exactly. So, and then the success might be, it's like, all of a sudden it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the reception it got. If it got a great reception, then brilliant. But if they've used it to, sell a retainer or get a new role on, or, even an introduction to a new client, or they've got a visit or a meeting or something, or not a minute, a Zoom meeting arranged, then that's a success and that's a win.
Yeah.
And I think so.
How long? This is how long is a piece of string question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How long did it take you to see kind of success in this sense when you started doing it?
Well, as I said, I think luckily for us, that less important success, which was a big spike in likes and attention basically online, and the views and everything was pretty immediate when we started doing it. Like, as I say, the first ones that we had real success with were some of the first ones we did, which were in the life science space and about like diagnostics and really technical stuff. And we just put it out there, not really knowing, a bit nervous about it. And, sort of 450 likes later and all these conversations. And it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So, we started putting more and more of it out. I think in terms of from a revenue perspective, again, quite early on, we started seeing it generate results, but it was when we got the consultants, and we had a lot of conversations with consultants about the fact that they don't do their day job of recruitment and then do a bit of content on the side of it. It was trying to help them to amalgamate the two things and see that the content wasn't an additional job on the list. It was something that, like, why wouldn't I use this in my business development when all I'm trying to do is speak to people anyway?
Yeah.
And so and we've had and now what we do is we set it up with our CR. We use Bullhorn, and we've got Cube as well, and we've set it up and now everything is tracked to within an inch of its life as to vacancy sources and things like that. And we can see now that we're at a point where we've got
the content's tracked.
So to an extent it's difficult, but we've certainly we get people to track their leads, basically leads at sources of leads and stuff, and it will come, and whether it comes from content or marketing, or the introductions come via marketing. Yeah. And we're at a point now where it's we're talking like 10-15% of all new permanent vacancies are coming from marketing.
Led content.
And and they tend to be decent vacancies. We work at a senior level, the perm stuff, And it's going, when you look at the amount of marketing-led BD that's done compared to traditional BD that's done, you start to see that actually per email, it's way more effective.
Yeah, and I think although all of these sessions, these 11 sessions that we've got going on, they're all they're all quite specific. They all do join up. It can't all be the same. We spoke about ROI last week, and we'll be speaking about automation and personalization next week. And that would be pointless if you won't be able to personalize or push anything out from a content point of view as well. Yeah. So I think, if you can get really good specific specialist content and it's tied up with your database, right, you're able to direct it to the right people, beyond LinkedIn then and things, aren't you?
And we moved, exactly. And we moved off LinkedIn. We moved our content off LinkedIn onto our own sites when we put the new sites together. And that was a hard sell for the consultants, because it's like, whoa, no, I want it on LinkedIn. And luckily the new featured bit on LinkedIn has been great for us, because they can still have it prominently on there, but it's just on our websites instead.
Yeah.
And it's doing that.
Keep it in your own house, isn't it, really?
100%. I know that's something we spoke about when we were, when we were working on it. And it was a real battle with consultants to make that happen. But now they've just got these beautiful pages on our websites, which have got 6 or 7 articles that they've written about their market. And when someone says, "Are you a specialist in what you do?" you go, "Yeah, look."
Exactly. You don't push to a testimonial page that hasn't got real names or anything like that, or you just say, "Oh, I did this placement," but you're not, anything's anonymized. Is that being able to show up, a decent chunk of stuff you've done in your marketing is great. Just a quick one there. Just picking up on Jess's question, the question stuff. This is a tough one, and it's probably both out of our comfort zones in terms of industries. She said, "I'd love to know what your thoughts are on how to engage consultants in creating content themselves when they're in a division which is supplying temporary workers on a 24-hour basis, and they say they just don't have time to do it." They probably don't have time to do it, to be honest. And there's an element in that sense where it's quite a high-paced recruitment market. I can imagine that the content isn't going to be like what Kris is doing, but I'm sure that if rather than on a daily basis, you're able to plan something out to have a kind of a content time or a content day to create a load of stuff that you could plan over a period of time, that might work. But that's a very unique situation, Jess. I'm not sure there's a easy answer to it.
I would say that, I mean, if they're saying they haven't got time, then they probably haven't. Like you said, they probably haven't got time. So I'd say the first thing that I would do is try and see if there's any ways that marketing and comms or anything like that, or teaming up with ops in your database and things. Is there anything you can do to save them time, to them free time for that? Proactively go out and do it. I think when it comes
to you effectively write the content, don't you, for the teams? They all of the foundations and the skeletons provided through the templates and the conversations that you have with consultants and they have with their clients and candidates, but marketing, right?
And I think that's the way that it should be, because it should always go through marketing, because your brand guidelines, quality control, and everything like that. It should be seen at least and spruced up like that. And I think with that question there about the temp stuff is, do stuff that's less time intensive. Maybe I would always resort to, if they want something that's going to be interesting, don't ask the consultants. Ask the consultants to ask the candidates. Ask the consultants to ask the clients. And if they don't want to do it on a one-to-one basis, even if it's surveys or something like that, you've obviously got a database of a lot of temps that I'm presuming you'll be in regular contact with. If you can blast something out like a question to them, then all of a sudden that's a bit of research and a bit of data which you can either bring back in-house, and you can, if you've got the capabilities to make that, or find a freelancer or stick it together in a nice infographic and then give that to your consultants to push out. But I don't think it is the consultant's responsibility to go and be writing, because everyone's scared of looking daft. And that's understandable, because it's not if it's not your job to write stuff, then I think to say to people, right, we want you to write a 750 word blog, and you have to be really good, and you have to look brilliant, and everything has to be absolutely bang on, because if not, we're going to be coming for you. Then that's like, well, I'd rather not.
and ultimately, like you say, it's not their job. But equally, again, it's probably not. This isn't a temp or perm, white collar, blue collar conversation. 100 grand a year or 15 grand a year conversation. Is that the industries that people are working in, you could still be a specialist in that. Hospitality. At the moment, for example, hospitality people, where people are on 0 hours contracts more often than not. It's fast paced. Well, hopefully it will be soon. There's still content that you can write around the industry and the challenges that the industry's having, and that's why marketing needs to play a role in it. It is fast paced. That's the nature of the recruitment world. There, let them serve what they need to do, but draw out the conversations to create the content.
100%. And the reason I think consultants shouldn't have to write stuff, because I think their work should start when they've got the content and they use it to go out, and then that's I don't think they should have to do the work twice. But then, like you mentioned, there is with fast-paced industries, with like things like hospitality, maybe where you are the opposite to us, and you in a much more candidate short market, is you want have all your content driven towards candidates by asking them what they want to do. Just in the same way that a CEO or a VP sales or whatever loves to talk about themselves, someone who's one of your really great temps in hospitality would love to talk about themselves. And what if there's an issue that's on their mind or something, then interview them about it, because that's also really unique and interesting content
and relatable,
and massively relatable to your other like 2,000 temps that are in your database or whatever, or you want to attract. And it's like, even if, again, it's about your objectives, but if it's these guys really care about, well, they've spent an hour chatting to someone who is, a temp hospitality worker, interviewing them about their experiences and about how they got into it, or about, I don't know, their aspirations and how can we help them get there. Like, don't sell yourself, but that's interesting. Like, there's interesting bits in everything everyone does. It's just about finding it and asking them what it is.
Yeah, but yeah, I tend to agree. Don't try and get your consultants to write stuff, because you'll probably waste time on getting frustrated with it back and forth and things. What that's probably one of the potential pitfalls leading on to the question. What do people need to be wary about when they go on this content journey, starting to write specialist stuff? From what you've said before, one is never try to be something you're not. Never definitely. Position yourself in that sense. But what else?
That'd be a big one. Like, as I say, having that, speaking from that point of authority is the main one. It is make sure that you don't overstep your mark, because if you do, then there's people waiting more, and both in industry and also in has that happened to you with some content?
Yeah, to an extent, we've been pulled up on stuff. We've never had a major disaster, touch wood, but we've put things out, and we've had people contact us and say, that's not quite right what you said there, or this has moved on since then, and
then you own it, yeah.
Yeah, and we go, oh well, if something is factually incorrect, we'll go back to the article and we'll change it, and we'll put something at the bottom saying we've changed it, thanks to so and so for letting us know. And if it's something else, we always own it. We'd never delete it. We'd always just like, okay, look, thanks very much for letting us know. We'll do our best, and we'll rectify it, and we'll come back and sort it out. But we've never overstepped the mark far enough where that's been a massive issue, I don't think. We have had disparaging comments from other recruitment companies at times, believe it or not, on pieces of content and things, which is like, oh, well, you've just written this because this is your 5 clients and that's why they're the 5 best companies in this market. And that isn't the way that we do it. But that's just like mad. But
that's good marketing, something like that. Creating a top 5 or something like that is always going to create a discussion, because you're never going to get 100% of people agree with your top 5. It happens in football, it will happen in life sciences, it will happen in logistics companies, but you can still have an opinion. and you want to create that conversation, you can follow up afterwards.
Leave something out sometimes. That's the best way to start a conversation, isn't it? You know, if you use football as an example, if you talk about big clubs, there's always that, isn't there? Like, who's a bigger club? and exactly that. It's the same with us. If it's and with, you know, medical companies or whatever. If someone isn't in it, then, you know, you always got to be able to justify why people are in it, and why people aren't in it.
But it creates follow-up content, doesn't it? If a CEO of a medical devices company moaned a little bit and said, "Oh, well, we wish you were in the top 5," is why don't you set up a call and then say, "Look, following this article, so and so got in touch with him. They wanted to talk about it."
We've done that, and we've done that repeatedly. We've done that quite a few times, and you'd be amazed as well that with content how much that happens. That you can have a 20, if it's good, you know, and if it does add value, you can have a 22, 23-year-old consultant putting stuff out there, and then you can have company pages that are, you know, $30, $40 million companies commenting on it saying, "Thanks so much for featuring us," or "Please feature us in your next article."
Yeah.
It's like, all right.
And you've had, I know, you know, from knowing you've had press opportunities in specialist industry magazines off the back of articles and things as well, haven't you?
Yeah, that's something that we try and do as much as possible. You know, that's something as well that it'd be worth that. It can be on the content forms as well, and it is in some of the sectors we cover. It's like, you know, which industry publications do you read, and then we try and get in touch with them and get them featured. You know, we've literally had one of our consultants, and we've been featured in quite a lot of really niche publications, and that's been great for business development stuff. One of our consultants got offered a column on a quite a big pharma website.
I bet that got a fair bit of banter around the office.
Yeah. But it was great. I mean, like, it was, he had a monthly column for, like, I don't know if he did 4 or 6. Like, you know, 750,000 words, things that all got featured on the main homepage of this, you know, reputable big pharma website. Yeah. And that's something that's never going to go away. And that's a really good, another good reason for doing it.
So if, you know, most people are writing content at the moment, but it might not be a specialist. They might not be as involved as you are in terms of going down that route. If there was a couple of things that, you know, after watching this, they could go and just try and do and implement into their business to really position themselves as a specialist within the market, you know, what would you say it would be?
What, as in with content or just in general?
Yeah, either or, I think.
I think that you've got to speak to your candidates, you've got to speak to your clients and your candidates, and you've got to have those conversations.
And don't be afraid as a marketer to do that either, I don't think.
Yeah,
as well.
Absolutely. You know, you've got to demonstrate the value that being a specialist offers. And if as a business that's your thing, I'd say USP, but it's not necessarily that because it's obviously what a lot of companies do, and it makes sense to do that, and going niche and going deep makes more sense. But you've got to use the resources you have at your disposal to be that specialist. And remember that don't try and be all things to all people. I think that's really, really important as well. You know, if you write niche stuff that's only going to appeal to your clients and only going to appeal to your candidates, and if people don't get it, if people read it and go, "Oh, that's boring," or "That's not right," or whatever, then forget them. You don't want them reading it anyway. Yeah. So yeah, I think, you know, have that laser focus. Find out.
Get that structure, I think, as well, isn't it? Get that structure, like whether it is a template or whatever it is, to show people that you're taking it seriously and trying to add value as well.
Yeah, process. You need a process in place for it to work properly.
I saw Mary's comment there. The whole, you know, it's great that you can name clients publicly in your article, and recruiters are reluctant to share who they're working with. It always amazes me the pushback on that. It's the same with you know, using clients' names in job adverts, and you're worried that recruiters coming down to it. It is ultimately is like, you know, if you're losing clients because of that, your name, someone else's name in them in an article, then I'd suggest your relationship isn't as good as you thought it was with your clients and candidates in the first place.
Definitely. And if you've got people, the thing is that this is an opportunity. Firstly, I would say they're not all clients that we do speak with. We do genuinely seek out new companies that aren't clients to include in these articles. So it's not the case that everybody is. But secondly, like, doing this content with your clients should be an opportunity to cement
strengthen it.
Yeah. And if you say to them, like, look, have that conversation, have your consultants have that conversation with the client. Like, look, if we include you in this, obviously we're going to get you quite a bit of exposure and stuff like that. Like, we have got that exclusivity, haven't we? And, have we signed that thing? If we're not retained, then is there an opportunity to move up into that retained way of working, or, and use it to cement that? Because what this can do is, if your client loves it and your client loves the stuff that you do and they start pushing it out, then whether they're a client of yours or not, then they're pushing out a recruiter's content that talks about them in it, in sometimes industries where they don't get written about.
Yeah. So I'd suggest if you're losing clients like that, or they don't have that loyalty to a certain degree, is that maybe they weren't the ideal client in the first place as well. But there should never. I get it, and it's been the case certainly for me working in the industry for 16 years. Is you always get that pushback. To be honest, there used to be the same thing about putting consultant profiles on the website, because I'm worried that they're going to get headhunted before LinkedIn. But the bottom line is now, whether it's clients, candidates, or consultants, is that we're living in such a connected world, whether it's social media, that everyone can contact everyone regardless. So why should and would that stop you doing something to add value if it can happen anyway? It's only going to be a positive. There's no negative in it. Not in my mind.
100%. And I mean, if you really want, if you really want them with job ads, it's usually not. If you can't find out who somebody is through a job ad with location and specifics, then the job ad isn't describing the job well enough.
No, anyway, exactly.
So I think it's important, and it's a great way of strengthening those relationships.
Cool. Right. Just got over the 45 minutes there, but I think, from my point of view, is that, like anything with something, if it's quite new, is start small. This doesn't have to be, hey, we're going to do loads of new content now, etc., etc. Is, focus on a single consultant or a single division, single location, whatever it might be, and just give it a go with content. Think about the processes. I'm sure if you wanted to reach out to Kris and he wanted to give you more insight into like the templates that he uses and stuff like that, he's very open to do that, I'm sure. But, start small, but demonstrate that you can add value. Listen back to the ROI stuff in terms of how it can add value. I think that asking the why question is so important. Don't accept I need more Java candidates at the moment. Can we write some content about it? Because you will end up writing the most vanilla piece of content ever. It will be something like, there is a real lack of Java candidates around at the moment. Companies need to be doing X, Y, and Z. It's just completely and utterly pointless. So keep asking why.
Yeah, 100%. But if you spoke to that one Java candidate about the most exciting thing they'd ever worked on, then that's interesting. It'll get more people. The best Java projects out there at the moment, or the best, whatever it might be. I'm not an expert. I haven't done my research. Cool. I don't think there's any more questions. Just having a look. No. But thank you for everyone who has asked the question in the session. I hope you got a lot out of it. Connect with Kris if you're not. Sign up to the future webinars. Watch replays, etc., etc. They should all be available on Crowdcast, but when I get a chance, I'm uploading them onto YouTube and things like that again, and it will be on the Lonely Marketers podcast. If anyone's listening and they're in the WhatsApp group, and if they're not in the WhatsApp group, the Lonely Marketers in tonight, which is the 28th of May, it's opening up at 6 o'clock to celebrate hitting 100 members. So connect with me on LinkedIn if you're not in the group and you want to join. But thank you so much, Kris. Thanks. Yeah, cheers, man. Good.
Everyone stay safe, and we'll catch up with you all very soon. Cheers.
Cheers.